MIAA Mondays back once again this week. Joining me is Commissioner Mike Racy. Sir, thank you as always for coming on.
Good to see you again, Chris.
Good to see you, and we've already crowned our first MIAA championships this past weekend. Cross-country championships up in Nebraska-Kearney. Pittsburgh State men and Nebraska-Kearney women taking home the first championships, and it's been a minute since we've had fall cross-country championships or any fall sport championships. Just kind of good to see that normalcy back, at least for the fall sports too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about yesterday. It's really been 2 years since our cross-country student athletes had an opportunity to run and compete at a meaningful championship. And you know, for us in the MIAA, cross-country is a big deal, and a lot of great student athletes competing. And Nebraska-Kearney did a good job hosting the event. The day before we were up there, I think they had the Nebraska different classes, their high school cross-country championships were on the same course we ran on Saturday for the conference championships. Nebraska women, as you indicated, a host school won the conference championship, so that's always kind of cool when a team gets to do that in front of their home fans. And then Pittsburgh State won the men's championship, as you said, and I think I read somewhere that is the first men's cross-country championship for Pitt State University, and that surprised me a little bit. So if I'm recalling that fact, that's pretty cool and pretty impressive for those young men as well.
You talk about just kind of getting the fall championship for the first time in 2 years. Just how special do you think it was just for the individual student athletes, yes, but just the coaches and the programs to be able to back us? Cross country is one of the sports the MIAA is known nationally for, and just it felt weird last year not having those opportunities. I talked to Missouri Western Northwest student athletes about it last year, not having it. Just having that sense of, okay, things are back to competition like we're used to. We're able to do this again.
Yeah, Chris, you know, certainly there's nothing good that came out of COVID. No benefits at all. But I think one lesson it taught us is how much we miss sports. And our student athletes and coaches miss competition. And, you know, I think obviously a lot of people are like me that, you know, you get to do this every season, year after year. You begin to take these things for granted. And I think certainly COVID taught us that, you know, that there's, you know, in a blink of an eye, these things that we hold dear and mean a lot to us can be taken away. So I think certainly on Saturday, there were a number of coaches, parents, student athletes, folks from the MIAA office, people with administration at Nebraska-Kearney that probably stepped back a moment, just thought that, you know, how cool is this? How wonderful is this that we're back together and doing these things we love, which is to compete and hand out trophies and celebrate championships. So it was a special day. It's good to be back, and we've got a few more championships to get through this fall, and then on to the winter. But we'll treat each one as special as it is, because we can't take it for granted anymore, this idea of competing and playing sports.
You talk about it, just kind of, it's great to kind of have that back, like you said, just kind of knowing the championships are back. We saw it this past winter with basketball, and we saw in the spring, but just to kind of have all the sports getting the opportunities back is just awesome to see, just from my perspective too. Before we get into the winter COVID guidelines kind of set up, the MIAA ratings are interesting to kind of always discuss. With I was trying to figure out how I want to kind of collect everything in group together today, because we had a lot of wide-ranging topics to get to. So I'll stick with fall sports for the time being, and I know regional rankings are going to right around the corner for football, and that's going to be a big tall tale sign of where the MIAA is sitting when it comes to postseason and everything too. Massey ratings coming out, 4 MIAA schools in the top 10. I believe Gulf South had 4 as well in the top 10, but 4 MIAA schools, number 2 Northwest, 5 Kearney, 7 Pittsburgh State, and 8 Washburn. And the Massey ratings are kind of a fascinating a look, I guess, at the football rankings and what they use to kind of decide who they believe are the top 10 teams too.
Yeah, and it's a power ranking system. A gentleman by the name of Ken Massey, who I think is a math professor, developed this power ranking. There are a number of power rankings that exist in both football and in men's and women's basketball. Different sports committees in Division I, look at these different rankings. They have their own that they use, a power ranking system. We don't use that in Division II, but I think it's neat to check in on these every once in a while. There aren't too many that also provide rankings and crunch numbers for Division II. Massey is one that does. And, I think historically, Massey has recognized the strength of the MIAA in football and basketball. And, a lot of people have mentioned to me in email or conversations I've had at games, Chris, that, the MIAA seems a little down this year. And I don't think so. I really, I think that, in the past, we've had a couple of super teams, but some teams that really, weren't that competitive. And I think every program in the MIAA is better than it was a year ago. I think there are a few programs like Central Missouri and Missouri Western that maybe have had a disappointing season. Some bad breaks, the ball hasn't bounced the right way. Some things that hasn't happened. But when you look at the Massey ratings, I think you mentioned four MIAA schools in the top 10. I think if you peel that back even further, there's like 8 MIAA schools in the top 22. And you start to see Fort Hays and Central Oklahoma, Emporia State, in that kind of 11 through 20 ranking. And I just think it speaks to the strength of our conference. Certainly the Gulf South Conference, like the MIAA, is a powerhouse. You've got in the Massey ratings, you've got Valdosta State at number 1. You've got defending national champ West Florida is sitting there right behind Northwest Missouri State. You've got West Georgia and West Alabama also in the top 10, perennial playoff schools in Division II. So, unfortunately, with our regional system, these rankings, these power rankings don't come into play. But I believe it highlights, Chris, really the strength of the MIAA in football this year, and to see Northwest, Kearney, Pittsburgh State, and Washburn all in the top 10, 10 of the best football programs in Division II. I believe that. I really do. I think they are that good on both sides of the football.
You brought up Fort Hays State and Emporia State, looking at the numbers a little bit too. I mean, they're sitting there with 4-4 records, and they're number 12 and number 15 respectively, according to the Massey ratings. And that looks up the offense, the defense, everything else, and there's a point system that's used. And I'm not a math person, so I'm not going to deep dive into that part.
I try not to dive too deep on how he gets to those conclusions. I don't want to put him out of business, so I don't want to understand his secrets too much, but I think it takes into account strength of schedule. Yeah. And, obviously, when you look at a school like Emporia or like Hays, and their losses are to schools like Northwest and Kearney in Pittsburgh State, it explains why their rankings are so high. But yeah, these are very good football teams. 4-4 in the MIAA. It's not what these schools want. It's not what they expect. It's not what they hope for going into the season. But when you peel things back, these are 4-4 teams that could probably win a number of conferences in Division II.
And I think one other question I have is kind of looking at how the MIAA ratings are kind of shaping or are looking at the MIAA and Division II in a different perspective. I know fans of each school and each program are like hoping they get into the regional rankings, but for the MIAA right now, you talk about some people thinking it's down. Well, it's just more or less beating up on each other is what it's doing, MIAA. But what's the kind of the goal, I guess, for the MIAA as you look at regional rankings, kind of getting teams in there? I know 2 is usually the hope. 3 is hard to do just because of the regional ranking system. But when you have a 1-loss Northwest, you have a 1-loss Kearney, I believe, and you have a 2-loss Pittsburgh State and 2-loss Washburn, there's a lot of good teams kind of right there, and someone's always kind of left out in the cold there on that one. That's just part of how it is.
Yeah, and so where I'm at on all of this, Chris, is Division II football needs to expand. The brackets need to grow. We have 7 teams in each region. In our region, we have 4 conferences, and almost every season, each conference is going to get at least one school in that's our conference champ. And then, that leaves 3 spots for the 4 conferences to battle over regarding our so-called at-large teams. It's not fair. It's not fair to Division II football. We deserve, as a division, I think, to have at least 8 and perhaps more. But each region needs another team in the playoffs. That would eliminate the bye, the first-round bye as well. And I think it would be just better for our sport. So, I continue to push that. I'm hopeful that is something that we'll see in the next couple of years in Division II to increase the field size. In the meantime, yeah, we're probably going to get 2 in. We hope for 3. As you know, Chris, we also we have a couple of bowl games in Division II, and these bowl games always like to go and invite the MIAA schools that don't make the playoffs to come and participate. They know the MIAA has led the nation in attendance the last 13 years, and they know that our teams making postseason, whether it's the playoffs or a bowl game, will bring a big crowd. And so we're hopeful that if we only get 2 teams in the playoffs, we get 2 or 3 teams that are able to go to bowl games.
Well, we'll start seeing the regional rankings rolling out here pretty quickly. And again, there's no final regional rankings for a few more weeks. That's going to kind of roller coaster probably a little bit for some teams here down the stretch. But let's kind of look at winter sports season. That's fastly upon us at this point.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner, just a few days away for some programs getting going, whether it's exhibitions and stuff like that. You guys came out with the winter COVID guidelines, kind of echoing the fall guidelines quite a bit. Just what did you guys see from the fall that could maybe carry over to the winter guidelines, and how much was it kind of seeing what did work in the fall, and okay, here we go with the winter ones too?
Yeah, I think what we've learned, the lessons that we've learned is that, really our student athletes and coaches that are vaccinated, we really don't need to worry about a quarantine situation for those individuals. And if they've been exposed and they're showing symptoms, we'll certainly do some testing and see if they've got something that we need to be concerned about. But if our student athletes and coaches, have been vaccinated, Chris, like we've been doing in the fall, if they're exposed or around someone that's positive COVID, they're not going to be required to quarantine. And I think that's allowed us this fall to really get through our fall sports season. Knock on wood, we have a few weeks to go,
Right.
But with just one postponement, and that was early with the Northwest and the Lincoln football game. Other than that, we've had a few things that we've had to shuffle around. but it's been a pretty good fall, and we hope by kind of adopting those same protocols for the winter, a little different, except for volleyball, we're moving from outside inside.
Right.
But I think we're starting to see, even on campuses, I heard today that Northwest Missouri State has relaxed their mask requirement in their public spaces, except in classrooms, and so we'll see probably some changes in protocols on what fans were experiencing at our winter sports last year compared to this year. I don't anticipate that we'll have capacity limits. I think on most of our campuses there will not be a mask mandate. But Chris, we'll continue to carry all of that information and keep it updated on our fan page on our website, where fans can check on each of the specific campuses before they go to a winter sports game and see what the requirements are.
This isn't so much guideline related or anything, but just the fact that we're getting non-conference back to and kind of having more than just the MIAA schedule for winter sports. And that's going to keep carrying on as we move forward, as long as everything keeps progressing the way it is with COVID-19, the pandemic. But to have that piece back, the non-conference, we've talked about the small college basketball Hall of Fame Classic. We've talked about the tournament down at Municipal Auditorium here in a couple of weeks. But just to have that back too just kind of seemed like that just one more step closer to kind of what we had in 2019-2020 season until March 20th, 2020 came around too.
Yeah, and we talked, I think, last week about matchups with Division I programs, and that's back, and all of these things, the exhibitions, the non-conference, these are things we missed last year because we cut the schedule, really tried to pare it down and just play a conference schedule, and so having these preseason games, non-con, D1 exhibitions, etc. I think it prepares our schools for kind of the grueling schedule that is the MIAA and in basketball and wrestling, and certainly what we'll see in our spring sports. So it is nice to see those back, Chris, because it's great preparation for the conference schedules.
Definitely looking forward to the winter sports season. Basketball, everything gets rolling here in just a few days, few weeks for a lot of programs. Now let's get into a little bit of the muddy part of NCAA and where everything's heading now. NCAA Constitution Committee, that's creeping up on us pretty quickly. I know we've talked about it back in June, July, and you get the idea. We've talked about it quite a bit. You and I have. Just where is this heading right now as the Constitution Committee gets closer to having either a timeline or the special convention or anything like that?
Yeah, so the big special convention's coming up in a couple of weeks. It's either November 14th or 15th, whatever that Monday is, in mid-November. There is a special convention that's been called, and Chris, what will happen, all three divisions will come together, and then all three divisions will have separate meetings on that Monday. There's a time block from about 11 o'clock until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon that if anyone is trying to reach anyone in an athletics department or conference office across the country, any division, you're probably going to get a voice recording because everybody's going to be on these virtual meetings. But at that meeting, at that special convention, we'll get our first look at the Constitutional Committee report and how this committee, how it envisions kind of a new NCAA, what that new structure looks like. Really what's made the news the last couple of weeks, Chris, is that this Constitutional Committee is saying that there's really going to be a two-step process. The first step are some rewrites and some modifications to the current constitution for the NCAA that governs all three divisions. And then there's going to be a second phase after that, after all this gets voted on in January at the NCAA convention. From January till about next August, each division is going to be charged to go back and figure out what this means for your division. So what we'll see first, Chris, I think, is a constitutional report that's going to give each division greater autonomy and the ability for each division to really kind of act on its own on significant major issues. For example, historically, the NCAA has identified emerging sports for women that they want to try to introduce to the membership in all three divisions and have a new sports offering grow for female student athletes. That's been done as the association-wide initiative. In the new Constitution, those are the types of things that each division can work on its own. So while Division I may think that the most popular sport that our schools could start adding is women's wrestling, in Division II, our schools might decide, no, it's going to be women's flag football. That's going to be our emerging. So there's going to be greater divisional autonomy to kind of figure out what is the direction for schools in that particular division. I think when we get past the January convention, when we vote on a new constitution, I think the world is going to be fine for Division II and III. We'll have some tweaking and minor changes to our structure, our committee structure, some of the things we do. Where the real battles are going to be fought and what the media will really be interested in are these fights that are going to take place at the Division I level. A fight over power and a fight over money. And that's going to take place from the end of January through the summer. And let's cross our fingers that coming out of that, Division I has figured it out. There's harmony, trust, a kumbaya moment, that they're all together, united. It's all under the NCAA umbrella, and we're one happy family. But the big news is it's going to be two steps, and this first part in January probably won't get a lot of big media attention. The hard work is going to be after that, especially at the Division I level, as they try to figure out their new Division I structure.
Money and power. That's always been a easy two-step process to figure out for everybody.
Yeah,
that won't have any problems.
It's the root of all conflict. So they'll have about 6 months to figure it out. So
well, 6 months. Let's hope that's enough time. Going back to the Division II part of this, the autonomy you talked about of being able to kind of control what you guys need to control. What are some of the things maybe Division II can take out of that, or maybe you need to look at that can help Division II? Like you said, if a sport doesn't fit quite Division II, you guys could maybe tweak that. What are some things maybe that Division II wants to focus on that maybe D1 and D3 aren't as worried about?
Yeah, and I don't know that it's necessarily D1 and D3 aren't as worried about, but certainly things that we would prioritize in Division II with our Division II resources are going to be areas focused on student athlete health and well-being. And I would think in particular mental health and the things that we can do at a national level that allow us to really use our Division II resources to get those things done. You know, before a lot of that stuff had to come through an association-wide medical and health committee, and it was dominated by Division I members, and you know, a lot of times the Division II voice is not heard, and now we'll be able to have kind of that medical health discussion about our issues with just Division II people in the room, and the people that really know what's going on our campuses, what's going on with our resources. So that's one small example. The thing I worry about, Chris, is that historically the division has been able to rely on kind of an association-wide cover. And, you know, I'll give you a quick example. Historically, when a Division II institution would be named in a lawsuit and the NCAA would be included in that lawsuit. Historically, that has been defended using association-wide resources and liability protection and coverage from an association-wide insurance policy. And I think we need to work over the next couple of months in Division II to make sure that some of those business protections are still there for Division II. Even though we have greater autonomy, there still needs to be some umbrella protections for each of the three divisions as we make business decisions, as we assess risk, as we try to make sure we're doing the right things for our division. We need some assurances that there are still some things that will be looked at from an association-wide perspective. And if the NCAA gets sued, the NCAA General Counsel is going to work on that, and NCAA Insurance is going to help provide those protections, and it's not going to be kicked to the divisions. That's one concern that I have in this more federated, more autonomous divisional structure.
Should be an interesting at least, 9 months now?
Yeah.
Once we get through it, we said it was.
Yeah, by this time next year, a lot of difficult, thorny, challenging issues are going to have to be looked at and decided. And, like I said, I have my fingers crossed that wise people will come to the table, make good decisions for what's best for student athletes, no matter the division. And, we'll keep this great thing that we all know as college sports under the NCAA umbrella. We'll keep that all together.
Plenty to watch for along the NCAA front. Commissioner Mike Racy, I'll get you out of here on this one. I was practicing this weekend for the Madden Challenge a little bit, had just a little bit of free time to get in there and practice. Hope you did. I mean, I can't get in there and play this week in the Madden tournament that you guys are hosting, but another opportunity this week for student athletes and just students on the MIAA campuses to be a part of the inaugural Madden tournament that you guys are hosting on Thursday, I believe, of this week too.
Yeah, correct. Thursday evening, I think, is when the competition gets started. A lot of work in our office and a lot of work being done by our partners to help promote this. We're really excited about the interest, and thank you for helping us get this word out. And it's going to be fun. The idea that students on our campuses that are interested in esports and gaming will have some conference bragging rights. That's pretty cool. And to think about students from Northwest and Central Missouri and Hayes and Central Oklahoma, being able to compete in online football and calling their plays and setting their defenses, and it should be a fun evening, and I think it's just an exciting time for our conference to kind of dip our toe in the water and see how it goes. I have not had a chance to practice yet. I've been getting some tips and coaching from all three of my sons, and I'm sure they don't have a lot of confidence that Dad will be able to pull off these tips, and I need to work on my my dexterity, I guess, to be able to pound the X button while I'm hitting the Y button or whatever the skills are here, Chris. But I'm a little worried now that you've been having some practice, some quality practice time. Our individual challenge may not turn out as I'd hoped.
I told Marshall Fay, who's helping organize this for you guys too, that you should still be the grand prize in all of this, to be able to play the MIAA commissioner. I think that'd be fun for everybody. It depends how it goes, I guess. Depends how it turns out, and somehow if the game gets unplugged, and we just have no winner at that point.
I guess. I don't know that it'd be fun for everybody. It would be certainly an entertaining broadcast.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you as always for joining me here on MIAA Monday.
You bet. Good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you. Take care.